Hi, my name is Nick, and welcome to Nick's Picks Watch Reviews, the YouTube channel where we look at watches that I would pick, I might pick, or I have picked. And once again this week, we'll be looking at a watch that I have picked. In this case, it's the Oris Aquis Date Calibre 400 in this beautiful blue. See that beautiful blue sunburst dial with that fume pattern between that lighter blue and darker blue, and it almost looks turquoise in some lighting. And part of this watch's story is that dial. It's a gorgeous dial. It's a dial that immediately catches your eye. But a major part of this watch's story is the movement, because it is a newer movement that's an in-house movement. In fact, one of Oris's first in-house movements in the Aquis line. Now, as we look at this movement, you'll notice that it has a 5-day power reserve as indicated by the text on the dial. And that's due to its two mainspring barrels that when fully wound after 220, yes, that's right, 220 turns of the crown. I actually had to reach out to a brand rep to learn that. It will provide power for 120 hours. And in fact, in my testing, I found that it provided power for about 124 hours with the amplitude starting actually quite high, well over 300 degrees amplitude. And in fact, the rate was basically over plus 10 seconds per day at that point, but it quickly slowed back down to a reasonable rate. And it held that all the way through the 5 days. Now, over the course of the 5 days, the amplitude dropped. It didn't drop drastically, but it dropped down. It eased down into about the 280s-ish, 290s-ish range, and then it slowed down to kind of the 270s-ish, 260s-ish range, and got actually to really good timekeeping. Over the course of my test, where it was just basically sitting dial up on the time grapher day after day, I found that it really only gained about 6 seconds per day over that course of time. So it's within COSC standards, but it's not actually certified. This is my second example of the Oris Aquis Date Calibre 400. My first example was not a very nice story. I bought it and used it primarily as a workout watch. I took it to the gym when I was going to the gym a little bit more regularly. And during that time, I would wear it every single day. And the idea was that even if I didn't make it to the gym, it would sit in the watch box, and I was never going to put it on the winder. I was only ever going to put it on the box and wear it to the gym. It would maintain time. And the idea was there, if I didn't go to the gym enough, it would die, and that would be a really big indicator. So I tried to give myself ample power reserve, in this case, 5 days. But what I found is actually it died on my wrist almost every time I wore it, and I was winding it quite a bit. And so that first example wasn't a great example. I actually purchased it on the first day they went on sale, and sadly, that one did get sent back to Oris for service. They ended up actually sending a brand new one. So the one that I have now is a brand new example that was returned to me. Now, one of the other parts of the story besides the movement is some of the innovations in that movement that basically led to a 10-year service interval and 10-year warranty to go along with it, although that warranty does require extra registration. But it does feature wonderful enhancements that ensure with changes in how the winding rotor is set up, changes in how basically everything is set up. It's a brand new in-house movement. It ensures that it's going to last for a long time. And we'll see. Hopefully this one does, but it looks like so far, at least, they stand behind that warranty if it does stop on your wrist enough times. Now, one of the other things that has been brought up about this watch as kind of a con is that when you go to set it, sometimes it jumps, right? So you're going to set it, and it basically, as you pull out the crown, the minute hand jumps. As you push in the crown, the minute hand jumps. So it is hacking. It's hacking in hand wind. But when you go to hack it, your hope is to set the time exactly. And because there's so much tension in the mainspring, when you go to push it back in, the minute hand sometimes just jumps, kind of has a mind of its own. And so the way to kind of overcome that is basically to set it beyond the time that you'd like to set it to, and then wind it back to the actual time, which some watch brands will say, don't ever set the time backwards. In this case, reaching out to Oris, they said, actually, yes, do that. Please go past the time and then slowly bring it back to the time in order to set it without moving off track. Another point that I would say about this watch that is kind of on the negative side is the dial text at the bottom at the 6 o'clock. So it features the Swiss-made text, which is great. Sure, very much a Swiss-made watch. But what's annoying is that that is in place of the minute markers in the chapter ring. So if you're trying to set exactly the time, you're trying to set it exactly to the time that it is, and you're around, the 30 mark after the hour, but not quite exactly at the 30 mark after the hour. You're like minute 27 or minute 31. Becomes really difficult to position that minute hand. And so that's, kind of a con, but not really. I mean, it's only if you're setting the time at those specific moments. What I do like, though, is this dial does maintain symmetry. It has the date window at the 6, and the date window is actually colored such that it blends in fairly nicely with the dial. It's not going to stick out like a sore thumb. So it was really well executed there. Now, let's go ahead and get into the specs of this watch and really dig into it. In terms of specifications, this watch features a 43.5 millimeter case with a 49.8 millimeter lug-to-lug, although lug-to-lug is really hard to measure in a case that is attached to an integrated bracelet. Both the case and the bracelet are made of stainless steel. Now, one of the things I really appreciate about this watch is the finishing. You'll notice that Oris didn't decide to polish the center link, but instead they polished the outer links, allowing those surfaces that you typically hit against things, at least for me, I typically hit my bracelet against things, don't mean to, but it happens. Those surfaces are brushed, and those brushed surfaces tend to hide scratches, whereas polished surfaces typically highlight those. And so there is still some polish, though. You'll notice that there is polished kind of outer links in the bracelet. So you do get that glimmer of light as you're wearing it still, but without the, constant damage marks or constant scratches that you'd typically be seeing. Now, I can see right above the 12 o'clock there is a scratch. Let's try to put it in the shadow there. There is a scratch in that center link, but, typically you're not, your eye is not drawn to that because it's not a polished surface. Likewise, the case sides, they have brushed all the way through. Now, that is a pretty thick case. Not going to lie, it does sit pretty high on the wrist, or at least it feels that way, even if it's not by millimeters. But nonetheless, it is a brushed case. So as you're, again, potentially banging that into things, it's not going to show those marks. And I do like the combination of finishing they've actually done on the side with the crown, because you do have some high polished chamfered edges, but at the same time, those are at an angle. They're not typically going to bang into things. So that was a really nice touch with this watch. Another thing that's a nice touch, and also potentially a point against it, depending on how you look at it, I look at it as a nice touch. It does have an integrated bracelet with a quick change system. And unfortunately, when I got this originally, there weren't a lot of options available for that. In fact, I don't believe there were any available on the day that I bought it. But shortly after, there was a rubber option. But you'll notice on the underside of the watch, we have these latches that attach the integrated bracelet to the case. And you can easily just flip up on one of those, and you can then pull the watch right out of that bracelet, or you could put it right back in just as easily. All right, so let's talk about the clasp. It is a signed, brushed, and chamfered with these nice high-polished chamfered edges push-button clasp, and the brushing, again, is going to hide those beautiful desk diving scars that you see at all the non-Instagram angles for this watch, and as you push those buttons, it reveals that it is a milled clasp with, again, some brushing there, and also very thick material on this clasp. The watch also features a 120-click unidirectional bezel with a ceramic insert, which we can hear here. Yes, those are bezel click sounds. Not quite on the level of the Rolex Submariner, but it is pretty easy bezel to operate compared to some of my others, namely the Seamaster. Doesn't really work with wet hands. This one does work with wet hands, so if you have wet hands, if you're wearing gloves, pretty easy to operate this one. It's very grippy. The crystal is a double dome sapphire crystal with AR coating on the underside, and it has a screw-down display caseback also with a sapphire crystal, so you can see that beautiful in-house movement. And what is that movement? Well, it is, of course, the Oris Calibre 400. Featuring 21 jewels, while it vibrates happily away at 28,800 vibrations per hour, making it a high-beat movement. The winding system has been simplified in this movement, featuring a unidirectional rotating oscillator so that there's no reversing system needed. Also, you'll notice that in terms of the bearings, it implements a sleeve bearing instead of the traditional ball bearing so that it reduces wear. So while the movement does represent amazing innovation, and it is quite beautiful as you look at it, it's actually quite simple. There's components that have been optimized. There's components that you might traditionally expect to see there that have been left out. But they've put a lot of thought into this movement, including only the components that are necessary and increasing the efficiency of the components that are left. They're also running these mainspring barrels in sequence rather than in parallel to basically create one really long mainspring while also reducing the overall torque. The movement also features more than 30 anti-magnetic components and exceeds the norms required by the ISO 764 Enhanced Anti-Magnetic Standard. When setting the watch, it features hacking and a quick set date. In terms of water resistance, it features 30-bar water resistance thanks in part due to a screw-down crown. Okay, so the lume on this one is pretty good. It has some staying power. I wish that the bezel was fully lumed. Not going to lie, it looks like it ought to be the way that it's painted, but it does have some staying power. My only other complaint is that I can't really tell the orientation except by the absence of lume at the 6. Other than that, it does really well in the dark. You can see it. The brightness is there. The staying power is there. And of course, it is my favorite color of lume as well. So that pretty much wraps up this week as we looked at the Oris Aquis Date Calibre 400 with that beautiful blue dial. It is a perfect everyday watch, not going to lie. It's at a price point that's a little bit out of reach compared to the rest of the Aquis line. So maybe you're saying, well, maybe the Aquis line is a great everyday watch, and this one happens to be a nice novelty with that 5-day power reserve. It doesn't matter. Go with either. Maybe you're saying I don't really like the look of it because of the integrated bracelet. I've actually heard that feedback before. They doesn't sound like it has any lugs, but you know what? This is actually a fantastic watch. Great finishing. It's perfect for, being able to wear it around, not really worrying about it because it does have the brushing where it counts. It has the polishing where it counts as well, though. So it does, still pick up the light and do some fun things with that. In terms of the brand, it comes from a very respectable brand that has been around for a long time and has been lately pushing the boundaries and listening to their customers and doing some really interesting things. So definitely pick it up, enjoy it, wear it in good health, and all of those good things. But that's it for this week. We will see you next time on Nick's Picks Watch Reviews, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Until we see you again, take care. If you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe to both this channel and the About Time channel, give this video a like, and hit that notification bell to be notified about future episodes. Is that a sticker? I still have a sticker. How long have I had this sticker? Look at this. Found a hidden sticker in the clasp. I know that probably hurt somebody, but that's okay.